Story 1. I've always been drawn to the wilderness, the vast forests, the remote mountains, and the promise of adventure that comes with camping in the great outdoors. But one camping trip would forever alter my perception of the untamed wilderness and the darkness that can lurk within. My name is Jake, and this story recounts the harrowing experience I had while camping deep in the rugged backcountry of the Pacific Northwest. It was a journey that would take me to the edge of my sanity and leave me with haunting memories that still send shivers down my spine. The trip began like any other, an ambitious backpacking adventure into the heart of the Cascade Range. I had carefully planned my route, packing my gear, and double-checking my supplies. My destination was a secluded campsite nestled in the shadow of Mount Rainier, a place known for its breathtaking beauty and eerie solitude. I set out on the trail, each step taking me deeper into the wilderness. The path was rugged, winding through ancient forests and following the banks of crystal-clear streams. The only sounds were the rustling leaves and the distant call of birds, a symphony of nature that filled the air. The hike was grueling, but I relished the challenge, the feeling of being one with the wilderness. I arrived at the campsite just before nightfall, a clearing surrounded by towering trees, with a small stream babbling nearby. It was the kind of place that felt untouched by time, a sanctuary from the chaos of the modern world. I pitched my tent, built a small campfire, and settled in for the night. The stars above were brilliant, a canopy of light that stretched to infinity. The soothing crackle of the fire and the distant murmur of the stream lulled me into a sense of tranquility. As I lay in my sleeping bag, I couldn't help but feel a profound connection to the wilderness around me. But that connection would soon be shattered by a series of inexplicable events. It started with a faint rustling in the underbrush, the kind of sound that could be attributed to a curious animal or the gentle breeze. I dismissed it as nothing more than my imagination, my senses heightened by the remote location. But the rustling persisted, growing louder and more persistent. It was as though something, or someone, was moving through the woods around me. My heart quickened as I strained to listen, my flashlight clenched in my hand. I unzipped my tent and peered into the darkness, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the night. At first, I saw nothing but the swaying trees and the glint of moonlight on the stream. But then, my flashlight revealed a figure standing just beyond the tree line. A chill ran down my spine as I saw the silhouette of a man, his features obscured by the shadows. He stood perfectly still, as though he had been waiting for me, watching me. I called out, my voice trembling, asking who he was and what he wanted. There was no response, only a low, guttural growl that sent shivers through me. The man's eyes gleamed in the darkness, reflecting the beam of my flashlight with an eerie, otherworldly light. Panic surged through me, and I knew I had to leave, to escape from this unknown intruder. I scrambled out of my tent, leaving my gear behind, and ran blindly through the woods. The man pursued me, his footsteps echoing in the night, his growls growing louder and more menacing. It was a nightmare, a desperate flight through the wilderness with the specter of a stranger at my heels. I stumbled through the forest, branches tearing at my clothes, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The man was relentless, his presence a malevolent force that seemed to surround me. I had no choice but to keep running, to put as much distance between us as possible. Hours passed, and I finally reached a clearing, the first hint of dawn breaking on the horizon. The man had disappeared, his pursuit abruptly ending as though he had never been there. I collapsed to the ground, exhausted and shaken, my mind reeling from the ordeal. I knew I couldn't return to the campsite, couldn't risk encountering the man again. With the first light of day, I began the long hike back to civilization, leaving behind my gear and the memories of that nightmarish encounter. When I finally reached the trailhead, I reported the incident to the park rangers, but they could find no trace of the mysterious man. They assured me that they would continue to investigate, but I couldn't escape the feeling that I had stumbled upon something far darker and more sinister than I could have ever imagined. To this day, I am haunted by the memory of that night in the wilderness, the feeling of being pursued by an unknown presence. It was an experience that shattered my sense of security and left me with a deep and abiding fear of the unknown that can lurk in the depths of the wilderness. Story 2. My name is Alex, and I've always been an avid camper. The thrill of venturing into the wilderness, far from the chaos of civilization, has always drawn me in. But there was one camping trip that would forever haunt my nightmares, a nightmarish journey into the heart of the Colorado Rockies. It was the height of summer, and I had decided to embark on a solo camping trip to the remote Pike National Forest. The promise of pristine wilderness and solitude was too enticing to resist. Armed with my trusty backpack, a sturdy tent, and enough supplies to last a week, I set out on the adventure of a lifetime. The hike into the forest was grueling, the elevation steadily rising as I made my way deeper into the Rockies. The air was crisp and thin, the scent of pine and earth invigorating. I felt like a true explorer, a solitary figure against the backdrop of towering trees and rugged mountains. After hours of hiking, I finally reached my chosen campsite, a secluded clearing beside a crystal-clear mountain stream. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows through the dense forest. It was a perfect spot to set up camp for the night. As I pitched my tent and gathered firewood, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It was a common sensation in the wilderness, the result of a heightened awareness of the natural world. But this feeling was different, more intense, as though there were eyes upon me. I brushed it off as my imagination and lit a campfire, the crackling flames providing a sense of comfort. The night was quiet, save for the soothing sounds of the stream and the occasional rustling of wildlife in the underbrush. As I settled into my sleeping bag, I couldn't help but notice how the forest seemed to close in around me. The trees loomed like sentinels, their branches swaying in the gentle breeze. It was an eerie serenity, a silence that seemed to hold its breath. That's when I heard it, the faintest of whispers, like the softest breath on the wind. At first, I dismissed it as the murmur of the forest, the rustling of leaves, or the babbling of the stream. But the whispers persisted, growing louder and more distinct. I unzipped my tent and stepped outside, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The source of the whispers was elusive, as though they were coming from all around me, from the very heart of the forest itself. I strained to listen, and the whispers took on a ghostly quality. It was as though I could hear fragmented conversations, snippets of voices from another time. The words were indecipherable, spoken in hushed tones, as though the forest itself held secrets. As I ventured deeper into the woods, following the whispers, I came upon a circle of ancient, gnarled pine trees. In the center of the circle stood a weathered stone, covered in strange carvings and symbols. It was an eerie sight, a relic of a forgotten time. As I approached the stone, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. I couldn't resist the pull of the supernatural, the feeling that I was on the cusp of a revelation. I reached out and touched the stone, and in that moment, the forest seemed to come alive. The trees twisted and contorted, their branches forming grotesque shapes, and the ground beneath me quivered as though it were alive. The whispers became a cacophony of voices, an otherworldly chorus that filled the air. I felt a presence, a malevolent force that surrounded me, and I knew that I had stumbled upon something beyond my understanding. It was a force that had slumbered for centuries, a force that now demanded recognition. As I stood there, paralyzed by fear, the forest closed in around me, the trees moving with a sinister purpose. I tried to flee, to escape the supernatural grip of the whispering pines, but it was too late. The forest swallowed me whole, and I became one with the ancient trees, my voice joining the chorus of whispers that echoed through the Colorado Rockies. It was a fate that I could never have imagined, a fate that still haunts my dreams, a reminder that in the depths of the wilderness, there are forces beyond our comprehension, forces that can consume us whole. To this day, The whispering pines of Pike National Forest remain a place of dread and mystery, a place where the boundaries between the natural world and the supernatural are blurred, and where the whispers of the past can still be heard in the darkness. Story 3. My name is Michael, and I've always been an avid outdoors enthusiast. The thrill of venturing into the wilderness, far from the chaos of civilization, has always drawn me in. But there's one camping trip I'll never forget, a night of terror in the remote Bearclaw Woods that stretched the limits of my understanding of the natural world. Bearclaw Woods was legendary among local campers, a vast expanse of dense forest and rugged terrain that offered both breathtaking beauty and formidable challenges. I had camped in many wilderness areas before, but this was my first time venturing into Bearclaw, a place known for its untamed wilderness and eerie reputation. I arrived at the trailhead on a crisp autumn afternoon, my backpack loaded with supplies, and my trusty dog, Max, by my side. The woods were quiet, save for the rustling leaves and the distant call of birds. The serenity of the place was both calming and unsettling. I followed the trail deeper into the woods, the canopy of trees growing thicker with each step. The sun cast long shadows, and the air grew cooler. I felt a sense of exhilaration as I hiked further into the wilderness, the path winding through towering pines and dense undergrowth. As the day turned to dusk, I found a suitable spot to set up camp, a small clearing beside a tranquil stream. It was a place of serene beauty, the perfect setting for a night under the stars. I pitched my tent, gathered firewood, and soon a campfire crackled to life, its warm glow pushing back the encroaching darkness. I settled into my sleeping bag, gazing up at the starlit sky, feeling a profound connection to the universe. Max curled up beside me, his steady presence a comfort in the wilderness. But that comfort would soon be shattered by an unsettling presence in Bearclaw Woods. It began with a subtle unease, a feeling that something was amiss. Max, usually calm and composed, grew restless, his ears perked, and his gaze fixed on the woods beyond. I brushed it off as the natural instincts of a dog in the wilderness, the rustling of nocturnal animals, or perhaps even my own overactive imagination. But as the night wore on, the unease deepened. I was roused from sleep by Max's low growl, a deep, menacing sound that sent chills down my spine. I unzipped the tent and peered out, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The woods were eerily quiet, the campfire reduced to embers. And then I heard it, a soft, whispering voice, like a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. It was a voice that seemed to come from all directions, a voice that sent shivers down my spine. I called out, thinking it might be another camper nearby, but there was no response. The voice continued, its words unintelligible, spoken in hushed tones that seemed to defy the laws of nature. As I ventured out of the tent, Max followed closely, his hackles raised, his growls growing louder. It was clear that he sensed the presence too, a presence that was now tangible, a presence that seemed to encircle us. I followed the voice deeper into the woods, my flashlight cutting a path through the darkness. The whispering led me to a small, secluded grove, a place that seemed to radiate an eerie energy. In the center of the grove stood a gnarled, ancient tree, its twisted branches reaching skyward. And there, beneath the tree, was a shadowy figure, a spectral presence that sent shockwaves of fear through me. It was a woman, her form translucent and ethereal, her eyes fixed on me with a haunting gaze. She spoke in a voice that seemed to come from another world, telling me a tale of tragedy that had unfolded in Bearclaw Woods centuries ago. It was a story of a lost love, of betrayal and revenge, a story that had become etched into the very fabric of the forest. As she spoke, I felt a deep and abiding sadness wash over me, as though I was reliving the emotions of the ill-fated lovers. The night wore on, and the spectral figure's story remained unfinished, her words fading into the early morning light. With the first rays of dawn, the figure dissipated, her presence fading into the grove. I returned to my campsite, shaken and bewildered, unable to comprehend the supernatural encounter I had just experienced. Bearclaw Woods had shown me a glimpse of the unknown, a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred. It was a reminder that in the heart of the wilderness, there are forces beyond our understanding, forces that can challenge our perceptions of reality. To this day, I carry with me the memory of that fateful night in Bearclaw Woods, a night when the unseen terror of the wilderness became all too real, a night that taught me that sometimes, the true horror lies not in what we can see, but in what remains hidden in the darkness. I've often returned to Bearclaw Woods, compelled by a curiosity that borders on obsession. The wilderness has a way of holding on to its secrets, and I can't help but wonder what other mysteries lie hidden within the depths of the forest. Each time I venture into those woods, Max remains by my side, a loyal companion who has shared in the inexplicable and the eerie. We continue to explore, to seek answers to the unexplained, and to challenge the boundaries of our understanding of the natural world. Bearclaw Woods is a place that defies explanation, a place where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural are blurred, a place where the past and the present coexist in a haunting dance. It is a place that has forever changed my perception of the wilderness, a place that has left an indelible mark on my soul.